Hello, geometry students. Today's lesson is on how to calculate the volume of a cylinder. Now, we already know a cylinder is it's kind of like a prism, but it's not because it has two circular bases that are congruent and parallel. Okay, I don't know why this didn't copy very well over to this, this program, but it didn't. So that's what our cylinder is going to look like. What we want to look at here is the formula, because the formula calls for us to use pi r squared times h. So just a reminder, I sort of covered it up here, but the radius is the distance from the center of the circle to the end of the circle, or to the circle, whereas the diameter is the distance from one end of the circle all the way through the center of the circle and to the other side of the circle. So just make sure if you're given the diameter as a measurement that you divide that by 2 because of the fact that this formula calls for radius. So it's kind of what we've been doing all along. We're going to write our formula, which is pi r squared times h, and we will substitute our values in. So in the first example, our radius is 10 and our height is 17. And remember, whenever we're dealing with something circular, we like to get 2 answers. So the first answer, you're going to just take everything that you can do with the numbers. So in this case, we can do 10 squared times 17, and we get 1700, and we leave the pi key in our answer, or the pi symbol in our answer. So the exact volume of this cylinder is 1700 pi centimeters cubed. Okay? But in real life, we usually need to approximate this value. So you can either put in 3.14 for pi, or you can do 1700 times the pi key on your calculator. And you should get an answer pretty close to that. So let's go ahead and let's work out a problem together. Let's work out number 1 together. So calculate the volume of the cylinder. So automatically we write our formula out. Volume equals pi r squared h, and you make sure you write that because I want to see that. And now we're going to substitute in. So volume equals, we don't touch the pi. We put 14 in for our radius, and we put 6 in for the height. And what we're going to do right now in our calculators, we will do 14 squared times 6. And hopefully what you got was 1,176. And now we have to take that pi key, or pi symbol, and put it at the end. And that right there, 1,176 pi centimeters cubed, is the exact volume of this cylinder. Now we also need our approximation. So remember, you can either multiply 1176 by pi or 1176 by 3.14. When you do that, our approximation is 3,694.5 centimeters cubed. Now, keep this in mind. I use the pi key. So if you multiplied 1176 by 3.14, your answer is going to be slightly different than mine, but it should be right around that 3,700 mark. Okay? So you are going to do number 2, but right now we're going to turn to the back and do a problem on the back, our reverse solve problems that we love so much. So on the back, these are problems where we're going to give you the volume of the of the cylinder, and ask you to calculate either the length of the radius or how tall the figure is, what the height is. So in this case, we were given the radius to be 15 and the volume to be 9,000. So we're solving for h. So what we do is we try to clean up the right side. So we can actually do 15 squared. That's one of the values we're supposed to know. So 15 squared is 225. And so the right side of this equation becomes 225 times pi times the height. And we're trying to isolate the height, which means we have to divide away the 225 pi. Now, something that I'm going to suggest to you here, if you're putting this into your calculator, you're probably going to want to put parentheses around 225 pi. Okay, so your calculator may be one that writes it side to side. So then you're going to want to write it like this, 225 pi, and then close your parentheses. Okay, you should get an answer of 12.73. Make sure you check that in your calculator so you know how to do it and that you're doing it correctly. So let's go ahead and let's do one problem together. And the problem that I wanted to do together was number 2. So the reason I want to do it, it says find the height of the cylinder if the diameter equals 10 and the volume is 240. Well, hopefully you're remembering that we don't use diameter in this particular formula. We use radius. And to get the radius from the diameter, we simply divide by 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. That is the value we will use in our formula. So let's get to it. Volume equals pi r squared times h. And now let's go ahead and let's substitute our values in. Volume is 260. Pi, we just leave our symbol as pi. And our radius is 5. Okay. Hopefully you can see that we can clean up the right side of the equation. So we get 260 equals 25 pi times height. And in order to isolate that variable, that h, we need to move over the 25 pi. So we're going to divide by 25 pi on each side. I've got a little reminder here for you. Put the 25 pi in parentheses so that you get the correct answer. You should get a height of approximately 3.31. You could leave it as 3.3 if you want. Okay? So you are going to go ahead and do 1, 3, and 4 on this side of the equation worksheet. Take your time. If you're having trouble, go back and redo some of the problems that we just did, but I think you're going to do great. Have fun.